So Time Magazine named Donald Trump their Person of the Year. And I understand it. He lost in 2020 to Biden and he came back and won it in 2024. And that usually doesn't happen. Usually if you're a one-term president, you usually don't get that seat back. So technically, I understand. I'm kind of surprised they didn't give it to Taylor Swift because they give everything to Taylor Swift. So I'm kind of surprised since the Eras tour ended in 2024, they didn't give it to her. But I started thinking like, well, who is my Person of the Year? Now, at the beginning of the year, I think it would have been Usher Raymond. Usher Raymond going from 2023 going into 2024. He had because his Vegas residency was doing really great. And then they had the whole thing about Keke Palmer. But everything culminated with the Super Bowl, where he had that fantastic performance where you just reminded how many hits this dude have and how we don't respect Usher Raymond enough as a performer and a hit maker. His performance of all those hits from Atlanta was fantastic. And then he got married this year. So it was a good beginning of the year for Usher Raymond. But then we get to the summer of 2024, which turned out to be the summer of Snoop, because Snoop was in the Olympics. So back in 2020, during the pandemic time when they had the Olympics, Kevin Hart and Snoop Dogg had a wrap-up show on Peak for the Olympics. And they were great at it. Snoop has a lot of charisma. I'm not the biggest Kevin Hart fan, but Kevin is funny. So they were great together. So after that, the execs at NBC said, well, we need more stars. I was like, no, Kevin and Snoop were great on that show. You don't need more stars unless it makes sense. And they said, poppycock. So what did they do in 2024? Well, first of all, they brought back the post show with Kevin Hart, but Snoop wasn't on there anymore. It was Kevin Hart and it was Kenan Thompson. So they did the wrap up show. So then at the beginning of the Olympics for the opening ceremonies, they had Mike Tirico, who's NBC's lead announcer, and they paired them with Peyton Manning and Kelly Clarkson. Now listen, I love a Kelly Clarkson, and Peyton Manning a lot of times is very funny, but he knows nothing about the Olympics. When you watch him with Eli Manning on the Manning Cast on ESPN2, it's fantastic. They're funny. Peyton's funny, witty, all that stuff. And when you see Peyton in the commercials, that's fine. He knew nothing about the Olympics. There were spots in the opening Olympics where you heard Tirico, you heard Kelly, you didn't even hear Peyton. Peyton. I didn't know Peyton. I thought Peyton left because he had nothing to offer. What does he know about fencing or equestrians? Nothing. And then you have Kelly Clarkson, and she tried her best, but that's not her wheelhouse either. That was bad. And then at the end, the ending ceremonies is Mike Tirico again, and it was Mike Tirico with Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon onto the Tonight Show days later said, "I had no business being there. I didn't know what I was talking about. I don't even know why they put me there." Jimmy was saying this, and I was like, "Why is Jimmy there? He has nothing to do with the Olympics." It should have been Snoop. Like, Snoop should have actually been at the beginning of those ceremonies, or at least at the end. The problem was Snoop was already in L.A. because at the closing ceremonies, they had this whole deal with Tom Cruise. He flew out of the sky like Mission Impossible. He grabbed the torch and he jumped on a motorcycle and he went from France to L.A. And then you had all these performances by Snoop and Dre and Billie Eilish, and because the Olympics will be in L.A. in 2028, right? So Snoop was already in L.A., so he couldn't have been at the closing ceremonies. But in between that time, between the opening and closing, he was the mayor of the Olympics. He went to so many different events. And it wasn't like he just went to men's basketball, women's basketball, and track and field. He went everywhere. I think he went to like a fencing competition. He went to some equestrian stuff, I think with Martha Stewart. He went to museums and restaurants. Oh my God. Snoop Dogg was the best media person there. No offense to Mike Tirico, but if you said, who do I want hosting this? I want Snoop. He was fantastic on it. So we'll see what happens. Like, I hope he comes back for the next Olympics. I'm sure he will. So while we were watching the Olympics, there was a commercial for The Voice that he was going to be a judge on The Voice. I was like, a judge on The Voice? But Snoop's been around forever. He's been around since Deep Cover. Deep Cover was like 1991 that he did with Dre. And it's crazy. The crazy thing about Deep Cover is Dre said he doesn't like that song. It's like, I don't know how. That song's brilliant. But they say he's going to be a judge. And he was great on there. It was like him, Reba McEntire, Gwen Stefani, and Michael Bublé. If this was a Chappelle Show sketch back in the day with those four, it would have been funny. Because it's like, well, how do these people get Snoop, Reba McEntire, Gwen Stefani, and Michael Bublé? This makes no sense. They were a great team together. I was never a guy who was like, oh my God, what are they going to do when Blake Shelton leaves? I was that guy who watched like the different versions of The Voice or X Factor overseas. Like, oh my God, will.i.am's in Germany. Oh my God, Seal's hosting the X Factor in Italy. Oh my God, Boys the Men, they're doing the Voice in London. It's like, why can't we have these people here? Why are we stuck with Blake Shelton? And I still don't know how Blake got Gwen Stefani. It's because of Blake, man. I didn't get a No Doubt tour because she loves that dude so much. Ah! Anyway, but yeah, Snoop was great on The Voice. He would get emotional with his singers. Oh my God, he was wonderful. The problem is Snoop won't be back for the next season, and Reba won't be back because Reba got her show on NBC, and that's a hit. And Snoop is just busy. He got a lot of irons in the fire. In fact, I think he signed to do a science fiction movie. So he won't be back for the next season of The Voice. I think Bublé and Gwen's coming back. I think, though, he'll probably pop up as a guest. I can see Snoop popping up sometime during next season as a guest, as a cameo. So I see that happening. I think he could come back maybe in the fall of 2025 as a judge. If not in the fall of 2025, definitely he'll be back in spring of 2026. So it'll be a while. So we'll see Snoop again. If you watch Snoop on The Voice, tell me what you think about him as a judge. So we have that. And then I was walking in Target and I saw a big black display and it's like, what's this? And it said Snoop Dogg, Missionary. I was like, whoa, because this is the album that he's doing. Dr. Dre is the first album they did since The Chronic. I can only imagine during the Christmas season, a mom was walking with her child, a father was walking with his son or daughter, and the kid says, Dad, what's Missionary? Can you imagine somebody's grandma, your granddaughter's grandfather say, what's Missionary? It's like, let's go. Just a big black display. Oh man, I wish. Oh my God, I wish they would have done that for Doggy. They would have never done that for Doggystyle. Oh my God. Snoop Doggy Dogg, Doggystyle in the middle of Kmart. It's like, oh my God, cover your eyes. Oh my God, who did this? But it's fantastic. I heard some of Missionary. It sounds pretty good. Now again, it's not the Chronic. It's not Doggystyle. It's not even Chronic 2001, but it sounds pretty good. The thing about those albums, Doggystyle, Warren G was a big part of Doggystyle. Scott Storch was a big part of Chronic 2001. And I always felt like Dre and Snoop should have made an album after Chronic 2001 and right before Snoop worked with the Neptunes on Drop It Like It's Hot and Beautiful and all those songs. That was a nice, sweet spot. They just never got back together, but it's great that those guys are working together. So, they should have just made another album before that. Because they did Doggystyle, they did Murder, they did The Chronic, Doggystyle, and Murder Was the Case, and that was it for the longest time. So I'm glad they're back together. I just think it's too late. But if you heard the album, tell me what you think. And now we get to the Snoop Bowl. This happened back in May that Snoop became a sponsor. And for the longest time, these bowl games was getting so crazy. It was like, who sponsored it? Like Popeye Chickens, the Popeye Chicken Bowl. It's like, who is doing this? I always say, like, man, it would have been great if it was like the Magnum Trojan Bowl. I was like, they would never do it. It'd be lovely to say, it's like, present 2025 Magnum Trojan Bowl. That would have been fantastic, right? But I said, that'll never happen, but it might could because you got the Snoop Bowl in Arizona. And at the bottom, it says, presented by Gin and Juice by Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. If you would have told me back in 1993 that I would see a bowl game with Snoop Doggy Dogg's name on it prominently, with Dre's name and Gin and Juice, I say you are out of your mind. That would never happen. The best thing about this bowl game is because one of the teams that's playing this game is Miami of Ohio, and Snoop is paying both teams NIL money. That is fantastic because this isn't like Alabama or Clemson or Notre Dame, or like Libby Dunn or Bronny James when he was in college where you make millions of dollars. Most of these, if you have an NIL money and you're from the MAC, you're not making that much cash. So I don't know how much money Snoop is giving these guys, but man, it's fantastic because for some guys, this is like the most money they're going to make all year. So shout out to Snoop Dogg. He is my person of the year. What is your favorite moment of Snoop in 2024? And if Snoop's not your person of the year, who is it? Shout out to Snoop Doggy Dogg, aka Calvin Broadus.